Oh shit, I did the Harbo thing. Hello friends from the Wheelchair Gang, Tardis here, and welcome back to another video where today we are going to be doing a more sort of discussion type video of Revolution of the Daleks in the wake of my very rushed reaction video when I basically sounded like I wanted to explode. Joining with me today is Cynical Who. I didn't have any compliments for you, so I just said your name. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, link to Cynical Who's channel will be in the description. As you can sort of tell by the title of the channel, it's kind of similar opinion-wise to me in some ways, I think. So yeah, I've brought someone on to talk about feelings about Revolution because I didn't want to do it alone, because I find it boring just speaking to myself all the time. The first thing I want to sort of talk about, this is kind of going to be the things that changed for me since my initial reaction, because a couple of things I've sort of noticed and picked up on more since that. So the first thing I want to talk about is just how much of the plot is exposited to you. Like, I've always found it quite annoying in this era, but like this episode, it really seemed to stand out like more than most for me. Like, there's, like, literal scenes where, I think there's one where, like, the lights are changing, and the Doctor's like, the lights are changing. And John Barrowman's like, why, Doctor? It's like, these are the questions the audience should be asking. You shouldn't need
And then, I think Max, was it Max who maybe brought this up? But there's a bit where the tube breaks, and then they're, like, talking, they go, oh, it's, they're feeding them humans or whatever, and it's, like, pretty clear that that's what was going on.
Yeah. Because, like, as soon as he looked at them, and, like, after he said the workers are gone and they were useless, it's like you can kind of infer that that's what he was referring to, a la, like, Revelation of the Daleks, where it's like...
Yeah, I did find it quite a bit, that scene sort of quite Revelation-y.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that evoked previous Dalek stories from this, and part of me thinks that's a benefit, but part of me also thinks that's a drawback, because you inevitably draw a lot of, like, parallels, and people comparing... these Dalek stories to one another, and in most cases I don't think Revolution stands up nearly as well as some of the others that it's compared to. That's just me. I think the second thing for me that I really struggled with, apologies if you hear any background noise by the way, I've given up caring at this point, is the pacing. The pacing is very, very strange. Because I did a little quick thing today, which is all the exterminations in Revolution of the Daleks, which is basically just what it sounds like, just editing them all together. And I noticed that it took about 40 minutes for the Daleks to actually start being a threat. And in a story called Revolution of the Daleks, I think I expected a bit more of the Daleks in it. I don't know how you feel about that. Like, I kind of get why there wasn't narratively. But I do agree with some people when they think it should have been a two-parter. I feel like when the Daleks, the what you call them, the defense drones ones, when they take over, that should have been like the end, like, of a part one, and then part two should have been them resolving it. And
I'm just looking at it now, and because the episode's 1 hour and 11 minutes long, and you say that the Daleks sort of don't really become a threat until about 40 minutes in, roughly, and the episode is wrapped up at about 1 hour, so they're in it for all of, 20 minutes?
Yeah, and that was, like, a lot of people's fears as well. I remember a lot of people saying, oh, imagine if the Daleks are only in it for 20 minutes. That's basically kind of what happened.
Yeah.
When you really, like, think about it. I know we had, like, some scenes with the squids, and, like, scenes of the defense drones as the defense drones, but they're not full Daleks, if you know what I mean. They're still sort of Daleks, but it's kind of like saying, oh, yeah, the bits in Victory where they're offering tea, that's Dalek scenes. It's like, no, that's not really proper Dalek scenes, is it? The proper Dalek scenes come right at the end when the Paradigm are introduced.
Well, I mean, is that even a Dalek story? Is it even a Doctor Who story? I wouldn't. I mean, I don't want to go.
I have a soft spot for it, but you know me with Matt Smith stuff. Yeah, so that was weird. Like, the pacing to me as well. Like, the opening, the opening with the chip van, that could have been cut down to like half of its size.
That confused me because I thought the guy was going to be like a main character. We had this whole setup and it was like, oh, his grandma's ill, and I thought he was going to become a Dalek and kill his grandma or something like that. But it was kind of random and pointless. I thought he was going to be a main character for the whole thing, and he was just in 2 minutes and that was it.
I feel like the only reason he was included, like that scene of him saying, "Oh yeah, how's your mum?" was to be all like, "Oh, it's going to be sad when he dies." It's like,
but it wasn't. It was just sort of.
yeah, it wasn't, and he didn't even die to a Dalek or anything cool. He died to a woman with a van, which is it's just kind of just like, it's a very coincidental like thing as well. Like, how did they know he was going to stop at that exact chip van, burger van, whatever it was, at that specific time, and get that specific drink so that they could point? It just.
Maybe they didn't. Maybe they had evil chip vans all over the country, and maybe there's a story coming up where Jodie has to like deal with all of them.
They're all actually manned by John Sim the whole time. He's
Yes.
like, dinner time.
Yeah.
I think Lord Slough said that, so I've just stolen the joke. But
Oh, brilliant!
that's what most of my content is, just stealing for other people.
Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, we love you, Dylan. So yeah, that I feel like that could have been cut down to about half its size, and like it would have made for a more effective opening rather than drawing it out. I will say as well, a lot of people give the Chibnall era praise for being accessible to new audiences. I don't think this was at all.
No, I think it was definitely because you've got to tie up things like, well, you've got Captain Jack firstly, which is sort of from Fugitive. And then there's even still plot threads hanging about from like the Timeless Children,
Yeah.
which I thought were finished up and sewn up at the end of that, where she was so confident with who she was, and she knew that she had these other lives, and she was like, it adds more. And then there's a sudden change in this episode, and she's all back to not knowing.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like character development isn't just repeating the same line over and over again. I feel like that's what he thinks it is, where you just repeat the same character beat and like people mistake it for development. I don't know, it's very strange. Yeah, because like there's this whole scene, isn't there? It's like, oh, I'm not who I thought I was, Ryan. It's like, but yeah, you are. You had this. You're the Doctor now. Just carry on. You know what I mean?
It is weird because it was so certain that she was fine with it. Like, what if you're watching these back to back, like half an hour ago, if that
exactly.
She was really certain of it, and now it's. I mean, it did make. I did really like that scene with the Doctor and Ryan in the TARDIS. That was really, really good, and they actually shot that last minute as well.
Oh, that the last minute edition?
I think so. Yeah.
I feel that was a good inclusion. What I will say though, is that it would have been a lot more effective if they'd shared like one scene before this together, because it does feel very out of left field when they're talking as if they know each other really well. It's like, we haven't really seen you interact properly on your own before.
No.
Like Graham and Yaz, you can sort of buy more because there's like little bits in like Demons of the Punjab and things like that where they have like little quiet moments. So when they talk to each other, it's still a bit forced, but you can sort of like let it slide a bit more. But with the Doctor and Ryan, they were all like, oh,
it's like you never see them. It's quite weird. It's like, oh, you forget. It's like when you're watching like a season 19 story and you get a bit with the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa, and it's like, oh, I've not seen this before.
Yeah,
and
it's
something we
weird.
needed. We needed a lot.
I also think that like
before.
they could have implemented that talk better. Like, it's weird that the TARDIS now just takes minutes between destinations.
Well, no, because I heard people talking about that, and Harbo pointed out on his stream, like, I know how much we all praise the TV movie. Like, it's clear that the TARDIS takes time to get places, because he points and he says, to Gallifrey, and he says it's a good 10 minutes in this thing. So
I mean,
it does take time to go places, but it also doesn't.
Just Japan, though? Just, like, because it takes them, like, 4 minutes to get, like, from the one part of a planet to another. Like, 10 minutes to get to another country in, like, a different planet, in a different constellation, I could kind of buy. 4 minutes to get to, like, Japan, though? I don't know.
Maybe in the TV movie they were doing roadworks, like, on the Castabras M25, and you had to take a detour.
I bet they were gutted when it all got shot down in the Time War. It's like, oh, we've just done this, damn it. So yeah, that was something. The Ryan scene, I liked the Ryan scene, but again, it doesn't quite feel earned, and I think that's a takeaway I have for a lot of the Ryan, like, especially their departure as well. I felt like
I think like in terms of the Doctor and Ryan, that bit maybe wasn't as well led up to, but I think the whole Graham and Ryan thing was done really well. Maybe not as well throughout Series 12, but there were the scenes in sort of Series 11, like in It Takes You Away, where he first calls him Grandad and
I think
things like that.
I understood why Ryan wanted to leave, because it was built up a bit in Series 12. He's like, is this our lives? And then he has like that nightmare scene where he's like his friends alone with the dregs, which is still a really weird scene in itself. But like, I get his reason for leaving, and they make it very clear in the episode, but it almost feels like it didn't quite have as much build-up. Like, a lot of people compare it to the Martha scene in Series 3. Like, the Martha scene I felt was done a lot better because it was sort of hinted at in every episode, whereas, like, I feel like with Ryan's wanting to exit, it's kind of just dumped into Can You Hear Me? Kind of like Yaz's depression, it's all just dumped into Can You Hear Me? And then it's just re-mentioned here, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I appreciate that they at least established why he wanted to leave at first, but is that really the bar? You know, where it's like, oh yeah, he has a reason for leaving. I'm gonna be honest, I wanted one of them to die. Like, I know a lot of people are glad that they didn't just
I was expecting them to die in the spaceship scene.
Yeah, because the thing is, they literally had some foreshadowing where it's like, oh yeah, don't get hurt or whatever, and Yaz looks all worried, and then they come back and they're fine. It's like, okay, what is that, like, foreshadowy line for if you're all going to be alright? Like, genuinely, there's, like, a scene where the Dalek shoots at them, and I genuinely thought that was going to be the end for one of them. Like, and they dodged it. That's another thing as well, like, in this era of six, like, it happens in all eras, but, like, the aim of the monsters in this era seems to be particularly bad. Like, I noticed it in the Ascension of the Cybermen, the Timeless Children. When the Cybermen are trying to aim, it's like they can't hit anything. They just become stormtroopers all of a sudden. It's that's strange. But I know that's happened in other eras, so I'm not going to give that too much flack. I feel like the prison scene was a wasted opportunity.
Definitely. It was over way too quickly.
Like, that could, in my opinion, that could occupy an episode in itself.
Because the whole thing was, the whole thing on the trailer was, how do you defeat a Dalek without the Doctor? I thought most people were thinking that it was going to be a whole episode, mainly quite Doctor-like, maybe she'll come in at the end, and it's sort of Jack and the companions taking care of it, like in Fugitive.
I kind of wish that's what it was.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I thought Jack was going to have a big... It was so sort of anticlimactic when he just appeared, like, just completely randomly. Like, there was no music or anything, he was just there.
Don't get me wrong, it was fun seeing those two characters together.
Yes.
But, like, it felt so generic in how they, like, interacted. Like, they literally had lines lifted from...
Yeah, oh my god, I hated that. Like, I quite like this episode, but I was watching the Time and the Whovians, they Did It Fail?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, I do need to watch it.
So, they usually do that thing, the cringe of the week, the cringe of the episode.
Yeah.
My cringe of the episode would definitely be that scene where... is it Jack who's like, no, Jodie's like, if you had work done, and he goes, you can talk. And he says it in the exact same way that it's said in Utopia.
Yeah.
And it's so awful, and I hate it so much. There was like no need for it, and it just made me feel ill. I hated it so much.
What I will say as well is that I know you're not a big Moffat fan, but I'm not, like, of the later bits, but I do like his earlier stuff. But, like, I do find it hypocritical when people say, oh yeah, Moffat's episodes were far too self-referential and fan-servicey. Meanwhile, Chibnall's over here referencing the Beauchene Peninsula, Gwen Cooper, Rose, freaking the Void, and it's like, that's all fine. I don't know, I just find it a bit...
Well, I feel like I don't want to go on a massive Moffat rant, because I'm good at those, but in the Moffat stories, they were more tied into the plot.
Yeah.
But just in this one, I will agree that random scene where he's talking about Rose and the parallel world thing was just like, what? Okay, brilliant. And unless they bring her back at some point,
the Doctor doesn't even acknowledge it either.
No, it's weird.
Which makes it even more strange that she just, like, doesn't even, pay any time in need. Tell you what else was strange. Captain Jack's departure was just...
Yes, he was just gone, and he was on the radio, and he was like, oh, here's Gwen Cooper, and I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we didn't even get, like, a goodbye or a hug or anything, like, goddamn, or, like, a salute to each other, like, something would have been
I know,
nice.
that would have been great, but it was just really sudden, and boom, he was gone.
I feel like, because they had this long, drawn-out scene of those two companions leaving, like, you couldn't have given a little bit of that time to just, John Barrowman, like, exiting, like 2 minutes.
If that, just like 1 minute would have been fine.
Yeah, like something just to sort of make it feel a bit more satisfying. And as well, on the topic of Captain Jack, what was his point in being in the episode?
I don't know actually.
I'm sorry, but like
well, he broke the Doctor out of prison, but again, anyone could have done that.
Yeah, anyone could have done that. That could have been. I wouldn't want it to be River Song, but it could have been River
Oh
Song.
no.
I wouldn't want it. But you see my point, though. It could be literally any obscure Doctor Who character. You know, could have broken. Like Absalom Dack could have broken 13 out of prison.
Who's that?
It's a comic book person who basically kills Daleks.
Oh yeah.
90s, big 90s character.
Hang on, hang on, sorry. How are you referencing vague 90s comic companions and I don't know it? The turntables. I'm confused now.
Been speaking to Davis too much. No, yeah, so like, you get my point though, that basically anyone could have done that. And
yeah.
I feel like the big return of John Barrowman deserved more. Like, that also, this is the thing, that also in itself could have occupied its own episode. Like, to me, that could have been its own thing. I feel like this episode is like 5 episodes in one, and like they just needed to pick one and go with that. Because one of them is like, one of the episodes is, it's the Dalek, you know, the sequel to Resolution, where it's like, you know, the
casing and
the casing and the new human Daleks and all that. That's one plot line. The other plot line is the Doctor in prison, and that whole thing that was set up in Timeless Children. Then you've also got the companions leaving, and Captain Jack coming back. There's just too much. I feel like it needed simplifying. And
we got Robertson as well, and the whole political thing, which was tied into the Dalek. But again, it felt very busy. Like on the TARDIS, having Robertson, Jack, and the other 3 companions, and the Doctor. It felt like Resolution when they had loads of other people as well, with like Ryan's dad and Lynn and the other guy.
But what I will say, I think Resolution to me is the stronger story. Like, of the 2.
I disagree, personally.
I feel like it's more cohesive and makes more sense. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still issues like with that. Like, how do 19th century knights take out a Dalek, even if it isn't in a Sparrow? That makes no sense. But at the same time, I think, in general, that story is a bit more... I think it's paced better as well. I do find it quite jarring when you go from the family stuff to the Dalek stuff. But then I felt that when you went from... you know, the character beats in this episode to, Daleks take over world. You know, I feel like it does feel very sort of... I think Lord Slash said it as well, because I watched their panel discussion, like, recently. It feels like it stop-starts whenever it changes. Like, I think that's why the pacing feels so weird. It's that when it introduces a new bit, it, like, it just grinds to a halt. And it's like, it's almost as if, I think Maddox said it, like, the characters just switch off once they're not in the scene. It's really strange.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird because I know they filmed it last minute, but also like Robertson and Graham just weren't in the TARDIS in that scene with Ryan in the Doctor, and I know obviously they were probably not available. Also, something else that I think it was George Puddy mentioned that is because I think the yellow beanie thing was only put in last minute because of obviously that Tosin Cole's got longer hair now. So he had to wear the hat in the TARDIS just to cover it up.
Oh, is that why?
I think so. I'm not sure, but that's what I heard.
That's on the level of the Paul McGann wig, that is. It's like, we need something to cover your head with. We'll bring back the beanie. That's just funny to me now you've said that. But, that's weird. There's a lot of, like, very convenient things in this plot as well. And, like, normally I can sort of... you can sort of let it slide, especially on a special episode. I'm usually a bit more willing to let things go. Like, for example, in Still on Earth, the fact that basically the Daleks are reversed by some typing, you know? Like, that's a bit convenient, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, I don't like the whole solution, but there was a big plot hole. I know, because I know this episode, a lot of people have said that it is littered with plot holes. The biggest one being, like, I know I sent you there with, like, a Doctor Who poop edit of this, but where was Ravio and everyone from the Timeless Children and Essentials of the Cybermen? Where were they?
Because, like, surely they didn't just leave and go into the 21st century alone.
Were they in the TARDIS the whole time? Did they get crunched up? Did the Doctor send them into the void? Like,
God, that Doctor Who poop was so funny. I might play a clip if I can. You know, that season was so funny. The Demons of the Punjab music at the end that sealed it for me.
But I would like to know who else was there. There was. I can't really. I hate.
Sharmas. No, he.
Koshama stayed on Gallifrey.
He stayed on Gallifrey. So, but like the other meaningless side characters that were in the Timeless Children, yeah, what happened to them? It's weird though. Like this episode's relationship to the Timeless Children is weird because it both acknowledges it exists and also like doesn't at the same time.
And it's so weird because it was like 10 months ago now, and we've all sort of forgotten about it. And
yeah, it's kind of like Big Finish's relationship to like modern Doctor Who, where like sometimes it acknowledges it exists, but then sometimes it doesn't. It's very, that's almost how it feels. But it's what's even weirder about that is that it's the same writer writing both episodes, so it shouldn't feel so jarring going from one episode to another, but it almost did. One thing I will say as well about the prison, I know this was filmed in 2019, but did they really have to have her reading Harry fucking Potter? I'm sorry.
God, I know.
I
hated that so much.
That annoyed me because obviously with all the stuff that's happened with J.K., like they could have picked any other book, basically, or even a previous Doctor Who story if they wanted to go the self-referential route.
That would have been good.
You know, because like I remember that audio story that's just like, I don't know whether you heard it. I think it was a lockdown thing. The Doctor gets like this thing that basically allows her to re-watch all of her adventures in the TARDIS.
Oh yeah, Big Finish have done some meta stuff like that as well, and like a lot of the like they're keeping all of the in like the natural history of fear, but a lot of the old first and second Doctors, like the files are missing. Yeah, it's quite funny.
So yeah, they did a similar thing, I think, for Lockdown as well. And Jodie Whittaker's Doctor goes, "Oh, Genesis of the Daleks." So what I really wanted was her to go, "Oh, a classic, yes please, Genesis of the Daleks." We open on the people, corpses. That must be really dark. I don't know. It was just like when it was that, I was like, "Oh, come on, really?" But yeah, I think what is more annoying about the prison stuff though is that like is genuinely probably the most interesting part about the episode.
Like, I didn't like the fan service that was just spewed in there, like it's an ood, it's a silence, it's a Sycorax, and everyone was going, "Oh, the Sycorax." I don't care about the Sycorax. Why? I don't care. I
thought that was implemented better than like just saying characters' names. I sort of buy.
Nah, it was still a bit cringe. It was like, "Hello, Pating. Hello, Mighty Pating from Series 11, Episode 5, The Saranga Conundrum. Hello, Sycorax from Series 2's The Christmas Invasion." It is Series 2, not Series 1.
That's something else I want to say as well. Is when Ryan says, "We fought off the Mighty Pating." At the end, I almost burst out laughing. I'm like...
Chibnall knew what he was doing. Again, with the "you're doing it, mate" at the end. Yeah. He knew what he was doing.
He even said to the Radio Times as a nod to online fans.
Yeah.
I used to believe that wasn't completely intentional, that being the last line of Bradley Walsh's tenure. I feel as though, this is one of those episodes, I enjoyed it on first viewing. The more and more you think about it, the worse and worse it gets. If you kind of catch my drift.
It depends if you focus on different bits. Like, I think the whole, like, sort of cyclical departure of Ryan and Graham was done really, really well.
Was it, though? Because, like, I found that scene with Sharon D. Clark, Grace at the end, where she's just like a Force ghost at the end.
That was a bit dodgy. I probably wouldn't have minded it if like the effect had looked good. It looked really tacky. It was like she filmed this on a Zoom background in lockdown.
That just really took me out of the moment there. So as well, I kind of like that that's where it ends, but at the same time, I really don't want a Graham and Ryan spin-off, and that's kind of what they were implying when they were like, "Oh, we've got our own psychic paper, we're gonna go have adventures."
Well, I saw someone saying that was referencing maybe some of the new Series 13 stuff, because well, we don't know if the Weeping Angel was for the game thing, or
I think the Weeping Angels are in Series 13
because they mentioned the gravel people coming to life. That could be a reference to the Weeping Angels, and there was the other one. Yeah. I'm just looking at it now.
The Sontarans. So that would have been cool bit of foreshadowing, but I kind of wanted one of them to die so we couldn't have the possibility of the fam coming back together at some point, because I just don't want it.
No, and my biggest complaint, I know we're probably going to talk about this at some point, but holy fuck, can we please, just as I thought it was safe, just as I thought we could have a series with just a Doctor and Yasmin and just a chance to let them breathe, and then stick around, Doctor Who fans, we've got something for you. Introducing Josh Bishop, apparently, on Twitter. Bishop. Josh Bishop as
John Bishop.
Doctor Who. And I was like, what? Is he the next Doctor? I didn't know who he was. Is he a Doctor? Is he a side character? Is it like Lee Mack? What is he doing here? I don't care. And I found out he was a new companion. I was like, why? Why?
Yeah.
We didn't need a new companion. If anything, it's the opposite of what we needed. Like, we need
No, I
room
agree with
for
you.
the current team to breathe. Just as we thought it was safe and we'd gotten rid of the 2 extra weight, which was just making the whole thing worse. You bring in another, but I really hope
Yeah,
that...
and people said, because I said on Twitter, I think I said that I think John Bishop, is it? It is John.
It is
Bishop,
John.
I am right.
No,
I'm
it's
not
just Josh,
confused
because
you
that's
kept
what
saying John.
George accidentally made a typo in his tweet.
So, I think John Bishop is a good choice, and I think that if you want to have like an older companion, he's probably a good choice. Like if you want to do a similar thing to what they did with Bradley Walsh, but at the same time, I don't feel like we needed another one, and I feel as though
having Nardole, Graham, and then this guy Dan back to back all seems a bit like why we. I'd like
seems like
old
the
men. Can we
BBC
have like an
kind of
old
desperate.
person from the like Victorian times or something? Like I'd like a not current Earth companion, please.
It feels like the BBC's getting kind of desperate to bring in the casual audience at this point, because the John Bishop thing almost feels like a mandate from the BBC rather than Chris Chibnall's desire. Like, to me, I don't know whether anyone else got that vibe, but it felt like the corporate were like, we need another celebrity stunt cast to sort of fill the void that Bradley Walsh is leaving. Let's, get another old comedian that, like, general audiences go, oh, I know that person, it's John Bishop from that comedy show I watch on television,
Yeah.
I don't know why my impression of the general audience is that accent, but you know what? It just is. But yeah, like, I mean, he's probably going to be fun, but at the same time, I feel as though it's kind of... Series 13 was a golden opportunity to finally expand on these 2 characters after 2 years of me not really knowing a lot about them. And then they bring a new one in, and I'm just like, why? Why did you do this?
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is that some of the response on Twitter that John Bishop was getting, I think, was quite disgusting, to be fair. When they were like, all in, like, uproar that there's another male companion. I'm like, they've always had both men and women in it, so... yeah, I don't know. That was weird to me. Yeah, I mean, I get the desire for an all-female TARDIS team, and I'd have been well up for it. But at the end of the day, if they want to, I don't see that as being a massive issue. I think it's more. I think the bigger issue for me is just that we needed, I feel like we needed it to be just those 2, not that it's another guy. Because I think, to me, if it was another woman, my reaction would be just the same. It's like, why are you bringing another companion? Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And,
it's just sort of unneeded.
Yeah, so that was a whole thing. I'm sure John Bishop will be fine, but it's... And as
Well, the thing is, they've already they've already filmed like the first half of Series 13, haven't they?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm pretty sure the whole time John Bishop has been really ill with COVID.
Yeah.
So, what's that all about then?
But I mean,
Maybe that leads me to believe that maybe he's not. He only comes into the second half of the season.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Is that he comes in episode 4, which is meant to be the Sontaran episode. So if he's only in the second half of the series, I think I could vibe with that. If we have 3 episodes where it's just the Doctor and Yaz, and then they meet John Bishop in the Sontaran one, I think that would be a better way of doing it, rather than just like have the first episode of Series 13 and it's just them right away meeting John Bishop's character Dan.
Dan, yeah.
But yeah, going back to Revolution a little bit. Because I know that we obviously talked about Series 13 stuff, and I do want to talk a bit more about that and like all the other stuff surrounding that in a little bit to do with like Dan and also the ratings. I want to bring that up because I'm not going to have a chance to probably talk about it again because I can't be asked making another video. So
that's a change.
Yeah, no, it's
what number video of this one Revolution with Daleks will be for you?
Oh God, good God! I plan on making a playlist as soon as like this is all over. You can document my journey from beginning to end with this episode. Yeah. So the other thing that really I kind of was disappointed by was the Civil War thing, because we finally got a Civil War in New Who and it lasted all of like 30 seconds.
It wasn't much, was it?
Oh, why? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like when they faced off against each other, I'm like, yes, this is gonna be epic, and then they just like go to like a bird's eye view shot of them shooting at each other, and then the Doctor's like, oh yeah, for mutants they're obsessed with purity, aren't they? And it's like, that's it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then in the TARDIS, they're just like, oh yeah, all the other ones were destroyed. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like they were just like, oh, we've taken care of all the other Daleks all over. Seriously, really?
Also, that's another thing as well. That it's very convenient that there's just a random group of Daleks that just so happen to kill off other Daleks, but not humans. That's a very convenient, like, group of Daleks that exists. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the idea of a group of Daleks that are, you know, the enforcers of Daleks' purity, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
But the fact that they just so happen to not kill humans as well, that's a bit too convenient.
I did sort of complain about this in my, because I made a sort of video about the Daleks the other day, like a video essay. And I was talking about remembrance of the Daleks and how they, again, it's sort of like a battle of like purity, but they're on planet Earth, but then they don't really kill any humans at all.
Yeah, it's weird in that. But to be fair, they kind of use humans to their own means a bit more in that way.
They do, yeah.
So
I mean, they did use the scientist guy who cloned. I can't remember his name.
Yes, they did. Yeah, Leo. I think was it Leo? I think Leo.
Don't know.
I think it was Leo. I rewatched it fairly recently. I think it's.
I've just realised what made me laugh. The Dalek with the water pistol. Imagine they kept that for the entire episode.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, I did like the callback to the Cushing films though, with like the smoky one.
Yeah,
that was quite fun. But yeah, like that's the other thing as well. Like they just get to that research facility and the Daleks have already grown, and I'm like, hang on, you've only just taken over his body. How is this already?
I was really confused about that as well. Like, how did he build that entire thing? And I was thinking, has it been done before? Was it done before? Or
no, it was done literally. I think off screen. So I think he takes over the guy, spends a while just making squeeze.
But that was like a couple of hours. How did he do that?
I don't. Chris Chibnall just tell us. I'm so confused.
Did he have a TARDIS or like why was there?
They have like a huge amount of exposition where it's like, I hired the workers and I got it off your bank without you noticing. And I'm like, we didn't
weird.
see, and that's another example of like this. I keep saying it. They keep doing the whole tell don't show thing, and it should be they should be doing show don't tell, as well. Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I feel like there is like a great 10 out of 10 Dalek story here. It's just there's just like niggling little things that pull it.
I really like the bit where the Dalek killed him, and there was the line like, you don't have to kill him, and he goes, yes, I know. But watch this. If he just said nothing, if he just says, I know, and killed him, that would have been so much better. But it was just like, it really tried to hammer home, like, the fact that the Daleks are killing. It's like, oh, God, you've ruined it. You've actually just ruined it.
Also, I don't know if it's just me. I liked the squid being, taking over a human in resolution. Is that just a thing that happens regularly now?
I know, because it doesn't make a lot of sense, like, how the Dalek mutants can survive outside of their casing. Because, like, if you watch the first Dalek story, and the Dalek's just a little blob under a blanket, just like chilling there, and it just doesn't. It could have jumped on Ian's back and controlled him, and like.
I mean, I guess you can get around the thing that if the resolution one can do it, and it was its cloned DNA, then like.
Yeah, that does make more sense. Maybe it's just the scout ones, the recon.
The scout ones, but like, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say. Oh yeah, that's another thing as well. How does the reconnaissance Dalek come back? Because there's a whole scene where it's like, oh yeah, I am a Dalek. I was the first reconnaissance one. So I'm just like, do all of the mutants have the memory of the reconnaissance one, or was that?
Well, it was cloned, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I assume then that they just
had
the reconnaissance Dalek inside it then.
Yeah.
Or was the only real one the one that Leo had?
No, I don't know what happened to the real one. Did it?
Because it teleported away, didn't it? Because it killed the guy, and then it went all purpley, and I assume it did the thing where it goes inside the Dalek casing. I think.
Oh, but the Dalek casing got melted.
No, I mean the new Dalek casing. The new one of the new black ones.
I don't know. I mean, there was something else I wanted to mention, because I saw you tweeting about it. So firstly, I've got a big gripe with the scene where Jodie is flying the TARDIS in the air, and the Daleks are all surrounding, which looks really, really cool.
Oh yeah,
that was a really cool shot.
Well, very quickly, the visuals in general in this episode,
Yeah.
I want to say probably the best in the show's history. I'm going to put that out there right now.
It was really, really well done.
And I give props to the directors and like the VFX artists. They did a fantastic job.
No, sorry, you got confused. The props department give the props to the directors. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, but like the CGI.
It was a joke.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Carry on.
I don't. That should just be the end of the video. I'm retiring now.
This is why I don't get you in videos. No, I'm not
I was gonna say, there's the bit where she opens the doors, and it's clearly Jodie Whittaker's TARDIS, the Series 11 TARDIS in the background, and then when they go in, it's the blue one.
Yeah, it's like weird. I think the only reason they did that was to fool the audience, but like.
Well, it did fool the audience, but when you look back, it makes no sense.
Yeah, within the context of the narrative, it makes no sense at all. Like why it should be the Whittaker one, unless she very quickly changed the desktop theme when she legged it back inside the TARDIS, clicked a button, and it reverted back to the Ruthie one, and then the Daleks flew in.
Ruthie one. Wait, no, hang on. How did she teleport back, or was she a hologram? She was in the TARDIS, her TARDIS the whole time, wasn't she? Can you hologram into another TARDIS? And also, the biggest thing, can you program a TARDIS to fly into the void?
Yeah, that was the thing because that's the thing I tweeted about, wasn't it? And I was like, hang on, isn't it established that like the void is really difficult to get in and out of? So how can now we just program TARDISes to fly into it? Also,
maybe it was maybe because it was one of the newer TARDISes on Gallifrey. But
yeah, but like they don't really establish that as being a thing that any TARDIS can do. If they'd established it at the time, the children like, oh, these are the new special TARDISes that do like void travel. I'd be like, okay, I can give it a bit more of a pass, but like they don't really do that. They're just, and I think as well, it was just a way of them getting, hey, look, remember the void from series 2 episode Doomsday? Remember the void?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It's like it felt like just a cheap way of them getting the Daleks away and also getting it a reference to the RTD era. So yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there's just, as I said, there's just so many little niggling things that stop this story from being truly like fantastic. Because I genuinely believe that like if those things were ironed out, this could be like probably one of the best, modern Dalek stories. Period. Like if like those things were ironed out, and maybe the characters were a bit more developed. I genuinely think, and the pacing was stuff like that. I genuinely think it could be one of the best. But there's just these little niggling things that stop it from reaching that potential to me.
I think it's probably gone down. I think I gave it an 8 out of 10 when I first finished watching it. I'll probably give it like a 7 now because lots of things have pushed it down. I'm probably
in the sort of 6-7 sort of territory.
Yeah.
It's like it's above average, but it's not. It's just again, there's too many like shortcomings that just stop it from being truly like fantastic. Also, what happened to the Jadoon? Because it's their prison, and you don't see any.
Oh, I don't know.
See, that's what I mean. There's so many little things that
were just completely forgotten about from the last episode. It was just so many things that were forgotten about from the last episode that.
Yeah. I like also. What was the thing I was going to say? I feel like Bradley Walsh barely was in it as well. It felt as though for his last episode he really didn't have many scenes, and the ones he was in, he kind of. It's the same old Series 11, Series 12 problem where they're just sort of background dressing. And it's like, yeah, and even Jack felt a bit like that at points as well. It's like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like the return of Jack deserved a lot better, in my opinion. Like, he just didn't really do a lot. Like, there's that really awkward line as well, isn't there? He's like, I'm Captain Jack Harkness and I'm immortal. And he just doesn't die. And you're like, what? What? You could have, like, killed him off and then have him say that line. But they didn't. They just sort of have him say that line without him dying. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. People say, oh, Moffat wouldn't let anyone die. And then in this story, like, they don't even kill off Captain Jack. The guy who can come back to life anyway. It's weird.
Definitely.
And as well, I definitely think for me it's one of the weakest companion departures Like, at least of the new era, probably. Like, at least, you know, like, even the companions I didn't like, with, like, Clara. Like, the Face the Raven ending was really good. Hellbent, not so much. But, like, the Face the Raven when she's, like, you know, going towards the Raven and the Doctor's looking all sad and she just, like, embraces her death. That's quite a cool scene. The Graham and Ryan one, it just felt so, I don't know, understated, which I guess works for this sort of more grounded sort of feel the show's going for. But then the grounded feel is directly contradicted when you have like two different factions of Daleks, and you have references to, and you have other TARDISes, and you have references to like the Beauchene Peninsula and Gwen Cooper and Rose. That's the thing. I still don't quite feel like this era knows what it wants to be yet. Like, part of it wants to be a new thing, and part of it wants to be, like, greatest hits. It's really odd. It's like it's got an identity crisis within it, and I've noticed it more in this episode. It's really odd. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say. I liked how it tied into Resolution. I think it tied into Resolution well, though.
It tied into Resolution better than it tied into The Timeless Children in the Series 12 finale, but I think that it was left on.
The thing that they're going for is having the specials be relatively self-contained, which kind of works.
But it wasn't.
But then, at the same time, you can't then set up things in The Timeless Children that happen in Revolution if Revolution is then going to be self-contained. It's so weird. It's just weird. Like, that's the only way I can describe it.
Doctor Who is weird. That's what we can take away from this video. It's just weird.
What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, the reaction the companions had for the Doctor being gone 10 months felt a bit too over the top. I said that in a tweet as well.
It does. Like, it depends. It was kind of odd, but good, but bad.
When Yaz shoves her, I'm like...
I thought that bit was good, but also kind of a bit... didn't really make sense.
The Doctor literally told her that she was in prison. Like, what does she want her to do? Just like... And
she was looking. She was waiting and looking for her the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
And what do you expect when you find her? You get angry and just like go, "Oh, I don't like you." It's like, well, you spent all your time trying to fucking find her.
Yeah, and surely, like, because this is the thing as well. They keep trying to drive home the idea that they're a family. But surely, if you hadn't seen a family member for 10 months that you really cared about, even if you were annoyed at them, your first reaction wouldn't be to push them. Your first reaction would be, "Oh my god, are you alright? I haven't seen you in ages." And then maybe talk to them like, "Yo, what you did wasn't cool." That sort of thing. Not immediately.
Like Ryan and his dad in Resolution.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he at least tried to be amicable towards his dad before he went to like, "Yeah, you left me with Grace.
You weren't at Grace's funeral.
You weren't with Grace when she died. It was very sad."
I'll tell you what, no, because because we've always made jokes about Tosin Cole being like a really wooden actor. He was really good in this one, actually.
He was.
The scenes that he was in, he was very good. And so it was a good exit for him.
I don't think Tosin Cole is the problem with Ryan. I think Ryan is the problem with Ryan. I think the writing of Ryan is the main issue. I think as well the fact that he's forced to do a Yorkshire accent when it's very obviously not his main accent. Probably,
is it not?
No, it's not. And I think to me it kind of comes across, because if you listen to him in interviews, it's not what he sounds like. But like, that's the thing as well. Yeah, that's weird. I was going to say something else, and it's faded away. Yeah, as I said, visually it looks good. Music, I don't get the love for Sega. I know you like Sega Nakanolo, I think.
No, I didn't really like. I know a lot of people ranting and raving about this soundtrack, and I just sort of. Alright, I didn't really take anything away from it apart from like the trap music that starts playing when the Dalek first appears.
Yeah, but even then, I feel like the Dalek theme is very generic evil music.
I didn't, honestly, I'm going to be honest, I didn't hear a Dalek theme. I didn't recognise a motif that signified the Daleks. I just didn't hear it.
Dun, 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 you know that one, like.
No, I don't know it, and you singing it is not going to help. I just don't recognise any of it. I don't care.
That's the thing, like, people were talking about the score. I was like, it literally just sounds like all the other Series 11.
I didn't recognise any of it, because it's like the problem with, like, a lot of the Series 11 and 12 episodes I did quite like the soundtracks for, mainly Series 11, and I did take away things from it, but specifically with this one, I just sort of can't highlight any bit that I actually remembered.
I also feel like Jack's reappearance would have been severely improved if it had had the Torchwood theme. I know it's a very old thing, but like imagine if he just shows up and it starts going to, like the Torchwood theme starts going.
Yeah.
So it would just be. I think it would just. I know that people are like, oh yeah, Murray Gold's music's far too emotionally manipulative and overplayed, and I do get it, but at the same time, it just feels. I think it takes some of the impact about seeing characters come back when you just have this generic score playing over the top. It's weird. I don't get the appeal of the music. What else was there in this episode? Oh yeah, the other thing I was talking about in terms of it being welcoming to new viewers is that I watched the first sort of 20 minutes of this with some family members before they went off and did other things because they got bored. That's
Sounds
which does kind of sum it up. But they said like, why is there another TARDIS? Why is she in prison? So like for a general audience who maybe haven't kept up with Series 12, this is not approachable in the slightest. Like to a general viewing public, it's just not approachable. So I don't really get it on that level.
If it was sort of if it was like a special that was like at the end of Series 12, sort of, it would have, I guess, worked a bit more, but even still.
Yeah, but even then, especially now, like 10 months removed from Series 12, it doesn't, it's not really very welcoming. Also, something I was going to point out, why couldn't this be on Christmas Day? Because I thought the reason might have been, maybe they're going to do some dark stuff in it. But then, like, no one dies, and you're like, oh, this could have been.
We've seen with the ratings, like even it just doesn't work on New Year's Day as well.
Yeah, and that sort of segues us nicely. I'm gonna get the ratings up actually because I don't know.
Oh God!
I think they were 4.69, weren't they, overnight?
I
think.
I remember looking on IMDb. I think initially it's at the beginning when I first looked, it was sort of rated at not like the viewings, but like.
I know it was
out of like 10, it was rated
on
like
BBC like that night, which is good. So that is something. Let me have a look.
I mean, people didn't hate it. It's look on IMDb. It's got 8.6 stars out of 10.
I do think though, this is my genuine question to like people watching who enjoyed it. If it didn't have the references in it, would you have enjoyed it as much? And like, I think for some people the answer would probably be no, and that's kind of the thing that worries me going forward. Because I think James Fraser on Twitter posted this. Like, it was revealed that one of the first things that Chibnall wanted to do when he became showrunner was bring Captain Jack back. And that doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence going forward that what we're going to get from him is, like, new and interesting. If, like, his first goal was to bring back an old character. Do you know what I mean?
Actually, do you know what? I think I was looking at the wrong thing.
Hang on, I'm just gonna Google it.
I was looking at Doctor Who in general rather than Revolution of the Daleks.
I mean, that's a lot of ground to cover. Revolution of.
Yeah, because it was okay. People rated Doctor Who 8.6 out of 10, not Revolution.
Oh right. I mean, that makes a bit more sense because this to me is like a 6 or a 7 probably.
Let me have a look. Series 12. Series 13. Oh. That's not a thing.
Oh, viewing figures. Here we go. Alright. Revolution of the Daleks achieved an initial overnight viewing of 4.69 million. Yeah, I was right. This is up 0.81 million, 21% on previous Doctor Who episode, The Time of Children. So it did perform better than The Time of Children, but with a special that is to be expected. Plus, it had the return of Captain Jack and the Daleks as contributing factors to that. What I will say, as I said, the show's not dead. So anyone saying that it's dead because it's got low rating, it's not, because it was the highest viewed thing on BBC One. So I'm just going to put that out there right now. What I will say, though, is that for such a big episode, you would have expected a bigger turnout. I think. But yeah, that's weird to me because The Time of Children was a very lore-heavy, sort of die-hard fan episode, so I kind of get why the ratings were low for that. This one is meant to sort of be the big crowd-pleasy one that's meant to get casuals in.
Mm.
Again, I don't think it has succeeded in that because of all the references, but you know, being as that's what it was, and I think this was marketed better than like probably Timeless Children was. Like I saw more advertisements for this than I did Series 12, but then I don't know whether that's just me. Yeah, so not better than the last one, but I don't know, I just don't get why they put it on New Year's Day. I don't understand when it's so obvious that it's just not the prime slot.
Hmm.
You know, especially considering, like, what was I going to say? I think Resolution kind of proved that, and Spyfall kind of proved that. Like, why would you do it again? I don't know. That makes no sense to me. What else was I going to say? I was just going yeah, but what I will say is I think Mrs. Brown on Christmas Day picked up, like, 3 or 4 million odd viewers, and that's been renewed to 2026. So I don't think you've got any doubt of, like, the show going anywhere anytime soon.
Anytime soon!
Yeah, oh god, am I going to have to cut that out? I'm not, I can't bother. If anyone's still watching at this point, bless them. Yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to point out? I guess, I'm trying to think what else happened. Jack Robertson was fun. I think he was better in this one than he was in like a...
Yes, he was actually... I did laugh at a bit, surprisingly. I did think he was actually good in this one compared to the other one.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think like there's some good jokes in there about like insurance, and there was one about, I think, the PR disaster. Like, that's quite good.
That was funny because they mentioned like the nuclear waste thing, and he just sort of winced and was like, "Yeah, it's a sensitive topic."
Yeah, I quite liked that. This does feel somewhat out of date when it's got a Theresa May stand-in, and it feels like a lifetime Theresa May was in office.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I get that they couldn't. They can't just predict. What you call it? You can't predict the next prime minister. So I get why it was. Ooh, something else. I was just scrolling through Twitter. The slightly altered title sequence. There was a marginal...
I didn't notice anything. Maybe I thought it was... Well, I noticed it was slightly more purple.
There's just a bit more of a rainbow glare on it. I'll send you a screenshot. Hang on.
Right.
I just found this on Twitter. I'll send you a little... and this will probably be on the screen as well.
The only thing I noticed was the way that the title sequence had changed. It was different in... not the title sequence, the vortex. Like, when they were watching it on the scanner, it was, like, blue.
Yeah, I think the only reason it was blue was because they were, like, scanning for something. I think that'll be the reason it was a different colour, because it was, like, scanning for the Dalek ship.
I don't know if I like that title sequence more or not. I'm not a massive fan of the current one.
No.
That one reminds me a bit more of Colin Baker.
And I kind of think that Colin Baker's... It's grown on me more, actually, the Colin one, I will say.
Yeah, I've always loved that one.
As I've been rewatching season 22. But, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, the title sequence thing, I've said this before, but, like, it's kind of the same reason that the Pertwee title sequence doesn't work as well. They tried to do a classic Who sort of, trippy vortex thing, but the more complicated you make it, the less effective I feel as though it is, which is why I feel the 60s title sequence is a lot better than the John Pertwee one, because when you make it colour, it just doesn't work as well. So, and I think that's a similar thing with this. When you put all CGI on it, it just doesn't quite have the effect that I think that they want it to, which is why I personally, for New Who, I prefer the TARDIS tunnel sort of thing rather than the more trippy classic Who title sequence.
I think the gap... I was watching the movie the other day, because obviously it's New Year's Eve, you have to.
Yeah. I
think the movie title sequence is one of the best, actually. It definitely sets up the whole RTD era one.
Yeah, I agree. I like that one a lot. I think it's a very good hybrid, kind of like the movie in general, of classic Who and New Who ideas.
Yes, definitely.
And I think I do think that works quite well. But we got way off topic there. Is there anything else? Yeah, the fact that they 3D print metal, that's kind of weird. That was another thing I noticed on rewatch.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
3D printed. I don't know, actually. I'm not... I don't know.
Neither am I. That's why I was asking
You might be able to.
The red lasers were cool. Like, it was cool having a different laser colour. I did like the voices of the new Daleks, how they were basically just the Remembrance ones. I like that.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was pretty cool to see. And I think it made sense as well, because you have to try and distinguish the two voices from one another. Otherwise, it just becomes, you are a Dalek. Yes, I am a Dalek. It's just the same, going back into, it's just Nicholas Briggs talking to himself, bless him. Yeah, also, the Take Me To Your Leader line, I genuinely thought that was going to be Davros. I
was disappointed about that. I remember Corey saying that it was just a bit...
They could have at least made the Dalek look slightly different. It was literally just another bronze one. I'm like, oh. You could have at least given it, like, a black head, like, in...
Well, that would have made it the Emperor Guard, and there wasn't an Emperor, was there?
I mean, yeah, but, like, they clearly don't care about continuity that much, otherwise they wouldn't have thrown the TARDIS into the void. So, it's been established.
Maybe a black Dalek or something like that.
Yeah,
oh no, because that would have looked too much like the other. Just.
But then there's other Black Daleks in Big Finish, isn't there? Because I remember seeing a trailer of a Big Finish story, and I thought it was Dalek Sec.
I haven't kept up with the war, the Time War 8th Doctor stuff. Also, that's another thing I hate. Is whenever there's a black Dalek, people just instantly assume it's Dalek Sec.
Yeah.
I know he is a black Dalek, but come on.
Speaking of which, actually, the new design grew on me as the episode went on.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you felt the same about that, especially when the red lighting comes on and they start going all evil. I'm like, ooh.
Well, it was based off of the Recon one. I really don't like the Recon one that much. It looks awful.
With a new colour scheme and sort of...
The new colour scheme was good, yeah. So, I don't know about the blue and the red maybe seemed a bit...
I think that is a bit tacky, but like I did like the black. It did give me like
the black and silver.
Star Wars vibes for me. It was like Star Wars Empire vibes. And I kind of like that. Doctor Who and Star Wars have a long history of like borrowing from each other. So I think it kind of makes sense that they did that, because obviously, Emperor Palpatine is basically Davros. Let's not beat around the bush there. But that's, again, a whole different thing. I mean, I'm glad I predicted the Civil War aspect of it. Like, I think most people, as soon as they saw that Clifton suspension bridge thing, were like, oh, it's probably going to be a Civil War. And I wish there was more of that. Like, I was gutted when it just sort of ended. And I said that earlier, but it really did. That disappointed me. And I don't know whether you watched it, but I watched the Who Addicts' reaction to the episode. And I think they had a much more immediate disappointment, whereas mine's almost been slower. Where it's like, at first I enjoyed it, and then the more you think about it, it's like, yeah, there was some real wasted opportunity. Prison stuff in particular, I felt like that was so creative when you saw all the different alien designs, and like, even though it was a bit cringy having, oh look, it's the BBC costume cupboard, let's just see which monsters we've got lying about. I still think it was quite, I think it was quite fun of a location. I wish we'd have spent more time there. Because I think, who was it who suggested it? I don't know who suggested it, but someone said, imagine if it was like a Heaven Sent episode where she's just in that prison and she imagined Captain Jack breaking her out in that very goofy way, but it's all like fake and in her mind. And then you cut back to her just sitting alone, and you're like, damn, that would be so cool. And
I don't know about that.
I think in Lord Star's video as well, they mentioned, imagine if they land on Earth and it turns out the defense drone Daleks had already been around for months, so you could sort of see the changes to like their lives with these new drones. Because as it stands, like, before they go all red and bad, they don't really change. Like life doesn't change enough because they're around for long enough. I think you could have done a lot more interesting stuff with that. JXE as well, like she literally put some clips from Blood of the Daleks and Revolution of the Daleks next to each other, and they do sound almost identical, which is kind of
yeah, it was quite Blood of the Daleks. I know we've already said that quite a lot, but
yeah, I mean, I'm listening to it, so I can't really put my head into that debate too much, but as I said, you know, like, it did feel derivative to me of quite a few different Dark stories, which again in itself isn't a bad thing. But I feel like in an episode that's already very self-referential, having a story that is in itself again quite self-referential is kind of too much self-referencing going on, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Series 13, like I definitely think in some aspects this was a step in the right direction. In some ways, and it's left me cautiously optimistic for Series 13, because my hope is, now that they've got a reduced episode count, we might finally get some stories that are a bit more, like, you know, ironed out, because they'd have had, like, you know, less episodes to focus on, so they can maybe tell more of a condensed, tightly written story within that one series. And if it is Whittaker's last, because, like, you know, 3 series and whatever, like, give us something good to go out on, I guess. But yeah, that's about all I'm gonna say. So thank you all for watching. Cynical's channel is gonna be in the description. And all
I was gonna
that.
say we should probably do an apology for the end of the video. I'm sorry that this happened.
Sorry that this exists.
Sorry.
It's about as dishevelled as the episode itself, to be fair. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you later.
Goodbye.
Woo!